Hey everyone, this is Matthew Kent. Welcome to Theology on the Ground and the Daily Thought for My Quiet Time. Today we're in Genesis 4. Yesterday we were in Genesis 3 and we saw the fall, the introduction of sin into the world, and we saw how the primary thing that happened was that the relationship between God and humanity was broken, fractured, changed forever. And we saw that mankind's relationship with himself was essentially broken at the identity level, where Adam wasn't able to take responsibility for his sin. He tried to pass the buck to Eve. Eve wasn't able to take responsibility. She tried to pass the buck to the serpent. And of course, their relationship with each other was broken and fractured because they were metaphorically throwing each other under the bus. Today in Genesis 4, it gets much closer to humanity literally throwing each other under the bus. Of course, they can't literally throw each other under a bus because there were no buses back then, but you get my point, because the first murder happens in Genesis chapter 4. So, starting in Genesis 4:4, we read, Abel on his part also brought of the firstlings of his flock and of their fat portions. And the Lord had regard for Abel and his offerings. So that's sort of like God finding grace or favor with Abel. I don't think this is because of anything that Abel did that was better, that Abel deserved it. But that's what it says, is that the Lord had regard for it. And then it says this, but for Cain, for his offering, he had no regard. Now, it sounds a little bit unfair, but of course, he doesn't owe Cain any regard. Cain hasn't necessarily done anything right, and the relationship between God and humans is fundamentally fractured. Then the Lord said to Cain, why are you angry, and why has your countenance fallen? If you do well, will not your countenance be lifted up? And if you do not do well, sin is crouching at the door, and its desires for you, but you must master it. Cain told Abel his brother, and it came about when they were in the field, Cain rose up against Abel his brother and killed him. Now, the significant thing here when I look at this, first of all, is the fact that Abel seemed to find some kind of grace or favor or regard or whatever we want to call that. But then also, so Cain had a choice. Theoretically, he had a hypothetical choice. God showed up and he said, listen, you know that the right thing to do will make you feel better, and so you should do the right thing. And watch out, because sin, so now we have sin in the world. Sin is crouching at the door. So in other words, we're always going to have this enemy of sin crouching at the door, desiring to overpower us. And so there's this war. He says, you must master it. And we see he loses that. He succumbs to the temptation to kill his brother, and the first murder happens. And that sets off a pattern in the Bible that sin is never kept at bay for long. And so this is one of the reasons why ultimately what we need is grace. Ultimately, we need Jesus to die in our place for our sins, to pay the penalty, die the death that we should have died. We need him to rise again to new life, to be able to transform our hearts, transform us, rise us to new raise us to new spiritual life, so that we can have transformation and not just be saved from our sins, but be made into new creatures, new creation who will battle sin still as long as we live, but will eventually shed sin and be done with it forever and live as new creatures in right relationship with God. And so that's basically the trajectory of the whole Bible, that you have creation and it was good, you have the fall messing everything up, and sin is this enemy. Sin and death, which go together, are going to be these enemies that are around for a long time. And technically Jesus has won the decisive victory already. But 1 Corinthians 15 says that it's on the last day that the statement will come about, O death, where is your victory? O death, where is your sting? And so it's that last day when it's almost like the war has been fought and won, but not all of the troops on both sides have been notified of the surrender. So they're still fighting, there's still casualties, and that's what we're living through right now. That's what we're seeing. We do see the effects of sin. We do see the devastation that sin causes, but ultimately we're going to be freed from even the presence of sin. Those are my thoughts for today. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you have a good day, and Lord willing, I'll see you guys again tomorrow.